Hey everybody, it's Big Ron Partlow and I'm here at SuperTraining Gym. And I got some tips for big arms. So, I spent a lot of years trying to get my arms big because I'm taller and I saw the shorter guys with the big cannons and I thought, damn, So I stumbled upon a few things that worked for me. One of the things that'll help, especially a taller guy, get bigger arms, if you can get this muscle to grow, the brachialis right here. If you can get your brachialis to grow, it'll actually push your bicep up. It moves it a little bit, creates more mass underneath it and lifts it up. So you don't just need to get your bicep bigger, but if you get your brachialis bigger, you're really onto something. So one way to overload a muscle is to fatigue the muscles that work with it. If they're fatigued, that muscle has to do all the work when you load it. So what I do, quite common, is I'll do a superset where I'll target the biceps mainly. Now to target your biceps, you want a supinated grip with your palms up. So I'll hit that, very bicep focused. Keep the tension, notice how I don't relax like down here. I keep it out, keep the tension on the biceps, and I'll work the biceps to failure, maybe in the 10 rep range, 8 to 12 rep range. And I'll squeeze the biceps out with perfect form until the biceps fail and I can't finish a rep. And I know that they're pretty fried. Then I'll come around to a hammer curl movement where you remove the biceps from the movement partially and the brachialis is left to do the great majority of the work. And when you move over to a hammer curl, your bicep does a lot less work and your brachialis does a lot more. So it's a good combination, and you want to squeeze very hard, fold the arm right in half, straighten it, squeeze, make sure the weight stays on the biceps and the brachialis. And you'll feel your brachialis contracting very hard because the biceps are kind of torched already, so they're forced to do more work. It's a great combo to blow your arms up. So if you want to try something, try a supinated exercise with your palms up, supersetted with a hammer grip. It doesn't matter if it's dumbbells, barbells, or a rope like this, but it's a good technique. Try to push those arms. Try to make them do something they've never done before. Working hard to get big arms was something I did my whole life. And there's a few things that I learned along the way. One of them is that a lot of people don't execute their arm exercises properly. There's a little too much momentum, a little too much swinging, points in the movement where there's no tension. That just doesn't work for me, so I had to be really meticulous. So I'm going to talk about the concentration curl today. It's an important exercise. It's one that most people use way too much weight on. But I'm going to show you what you need to look for when you do a concentration curl. So first of all, a lot of people sit. But because of my height, if I sit, the dumbbell actually hits the floor. So I stand up like Arnold did in pumping iron. If you remember seeing Arnold perform his preacher curls like this. Now one thing I try to do is I try not to let my bicep relax. So I try to keep it supinated because the bicep relaxes here. Keep a little more tension. And I also would keep the dumbbell just a little bit there. So there's a little more bicep tension. And I'd curl out of that spot. So you get maximal tension the whole time. Bang. It's gonna drop the amount of weight you can use on the dumbbell, but that's okay because biceps only know tension. Tension and squeezing and stress and fatigue, and that's what it's all about. You'll see a lot of people that have a heavy dumbbell and they're kind of going like this, right? But that's okay at the end if you want to cheat out some reps, but I try to keep the tension on the biceps so that it's suffering all the time. There you go. Here's a little tip on how to make every rep more painful, which makes your set more productive. So one thing that I'm really big on is trying to make sets as brutal as possible, trying to make them as painful as possible, get as much tension, as much stress as I can in one set. It was always a big deal for me to make my sets as intense as I could. So I'm going to demonstrate how I would do that with a simple exercise like a cable curl. So first of all, I always perform my exercises with really strict form. So I would keep some tension on the bicep, kind of pressing into the tension. I wouldn't let it relax. Like there's no tension on my biceps here at all, but there's tension on them here. So I would keep maximum tension and I would just curl perfect reps like this fully straightening my arm, keeping the tension on the bicep, and I would hammer out these reps until I hit failure. You know, let's say I get 10, 12 perfect reps, and then eventually I get to the point where I can't finish a rep anymore. So now at that point, I would allow myself a little bit of swing, pop out a few and really catch the negative. So you're just doing the rep in order to do the negative, but the negative has to be perfect. It's only this that you're cheating on. You're not gonna let it fall as well. You're gonna pop it up, crank out a few more negatives until eventually it's just gonna fall on you. Now you're pretty close to being completely fucked at this point. So what I would do now is I would go back into a straight position and I would just activate the biceps just as much as I can. You're not gonna do a rep, but you're hitting these partials and it's still firing away and you're still getting some activation out of it and still loading the muscle. Eventually, you're barely gonna be able to move it. And that's when you know you've done an all-out set. I'm Big Ron Partlow at SuperTraining Gym.